Hi everyone and welcome back. So, we've talked about pencil sharpeners and mechanical pencils, and I thought it was about time we talked about erasers. I get lots of questions asked about erasers and the various kinds that I use, so I thought, okay, definitely got to make a video about this. So this video is not going to be a shoot-off video, which is the best eraser between this one or that one, or one manufacturer's brand against another. I'm not going to be demonstrating them either, on graphite samples and things like that, which one erases the best. There's no need, I already know which ones work the best. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And I'll be showing you the top 5, which I highly recommend for beginners or professionals alike. But I'll start with these, the standard block erasers. They're a good choice for anybody, and I think most people should, well, everybody should own one that's into graphite drawing. They all work fairly similarly, but the biggest drawback with these really is their size. When you want to get fine detail. Now, when they're new, you can use the corners of them and the sharp edges of them, to get nice fine detail. But they soon start to round off a little bit, and you have to get the craft knife to them and start to cut them down to get those sharp edges again. When you start doing that, obviously they don't last very long. And you still can't really get as fine a detail with them as you can with some of the other erasers here. Like, for example, the Tombow Mono Zero eraser. Now, if you're new to graphite drawing, you've been watching other artists on YouTube, you'll probably notice that pretty much all of them use one of these erasers. And I have to say, for good reason, they are absolutely fantastic. They are a mainstay, really, amongst artists. They have a 2.3mm eraser in there, which is very fine. I have seen artists that sharpen the tip even finer to get a fine point. I don't actually like doing that. The reason being is when you've sharpened it to a fine point and you've erased a small area with it, it slowly rounds back off again and you're back to square one again, and it seems kind of pointless, pardon the pun, to actually sharpen it to a point. So what I like to do is cut the end off flat, or wear it down on a piece of paper like that until it's absolutely flat, and then I'm left with a nice sharp edge all around the outside of the eraser. And then I hold the eraser at an angle to the paper, and that gives me super fine lines, finer than the 2.3 actual size of the eraser, because I'm only using the very sharp edge around the outside. Now, obviously that's going to wear down as well and start to round off, but you get longer with this because you can just keep turning the eraser to a fresh bit on the edge each time, and it works longer than actually cutting that down to an even finer point. But there are issues with that, because you probably notice the pocket clip here, it rotates, and as that's rotating, the eraser is rotating with it as well. So those two are fixed there. So what you've got to be careful of is when you're holding it in your hand and the pocket clip is pressing on your hand, and you've just erased an area and you want to turn the eraser to get a fresh edge on the end there, what's actually happening is nothing. Only the barrel is turning. You can probably see the writing going round there, and the pocket clip's locked on and the eraser's not moving at all. So what you've got to do is make sure that the pocket clip is actually free from your hand when you're rotating it to get to a fresh edge there, or you'll just be wasting your time. You'll probably be thinking that this doesn't work properly. You'll be spinning it around in your hand and erasing and thinking, well, that mark's getting thicker. I'll spin it again and it's getting even thicker. There's something wrong with it. It's not erasing very well, but it's not. It's just that the eraser and the pocket clip, you can see, look, when I spin the eraser, the pocket clip turns. They're actually locked in together. Now they are a really good eraser, almost, you know, a must-have. Well, I would say a definite must-have actually, and you can get you know, refills for it. They come in these tubes. They don't last long, but you know, still they are still worth it. Tombow also makes a rectangular version, which is, it says the size is on the end there, which is 2 point, no, not 2.5, just, is it 2.5? I need my glasses on. Yeah, 2.5 by 5. So it's obviously 5mm that way and 2.5mm that way. Not that far off the diameter of that, but you know, not quite as fine. Don't often use this one. In fact, I may have used it in a YouTube video, I can't remember, but I hardly ever use it. I much prefer, you know, this one here. They're both the same compound in there. They both erase, you know, extremely well, extremely efficiently. It's just I've not really found a specific use for that size of the eraser just yet. So yeah, so the Tombow Mono, that's a brilliant one to get. Now, pencil erasers. You may or may not know that I've started using these a while ago, and it was my good friend Lena Line that recommended these to me. In fact, I'll put a link to her channel in the description below, and you can go and see her, you know, fantastic drawings. And she uses these quite a lot for erasing things like pastel pencils and charcoal, as well as graphite, and they work superbly. Yeah, so she recommended these to me. I've been using the Faber-Castell and the Derwent pencil erasers. They were my two favourite erasers before I knew about these. Now, there's nothing wrong with these at all. They are, you know, excellent quality erasers. They really are. You know, and if the Koh-i-Noor didn't exist, we wouldn't have anything to moan about, you know, with just having these two erasers, because they really do work very well indeed. But, you know, after using the Koh-i-Noor for several pictures, I have to say that they are just, you know, quite a bit better than the two I just mentioned there. This one seems to erase cleaner. It seems to not get so clogged up and dirty, and just generally work better, you know, than any of the other pencil erasers that I've used. So that's the Koh-i-Noor Hardtmuth 6312 pencil eraser. You might have some difficulty actually finding these. I did initially. First of all, I bought two of them, and I got through them pretty quick, and this is the last one of the two that I actually bought. So I had to source some more pretty quickly, and they're quite hard to get hold of. Obviously I'm in the UK, so you know, they're quite hard to get hold of in this country, but they are in fact made in the Czech Republic, where I actually ordered them direct. In fact, I'll just show you actually. I bought quite a stash of them because it's one of those items that I just don't want to be without when I'm drawing, you know. And the difficulty I had in actually getting them at a reasonable price, you know, kind of made me think, well, okay, I found this place which is selling them at a reasonable price. I'll kind of stock up and get a few, you know, just in case I run out or they get discontinued or whatever. So yeah, absolutely the best pencil eraser I ever used, the Koh-i-Noor. And you're probably thinking, well, what's the difference then between, you know, the pencil eraser and the Tombow eraser, because they're both, you know, fine points, aren't they? Well, yes, they are, but obviously the pencil eraser is tapered, so you don't get such a consistent line as that one. I mean, you know, it's a fine line, but you know, the more you wear that down, you know, the larger the circumference of the eraser gets, so you're not going to get such a fine line. You know, yes, I can sort of use the edge of it, but again, you know, it's back to sort of having to keep cutting it all the time. But what I like to use these for particularly is foliage, where it doesn't really matter if I'm getting a consistent erased mark or not. You know, leaves and foliage vary in size anyway, so you know, one of these is absolutely ideal, and just for general erasing as well. I like to use them for highlights in water, all sorts of things. Whereas this one is, you know, much finer. I can just get that little bit extra finer detail with this. So that's why I decided to actually go for two of them, you know, two different ones. Right, and at the other end of the scale we've got the big chunky Derwent pen eraser. Now I really like this one. This is, you know, it's a reasonable diameter there of eraser. Obviously it's not for, you know, super fine lines or anything like that. But it's a very usable size for general erasing. But a couple of things I particularly like to use this for. One of them is for actually drawing out clouds when I've put graphite powder down on some paper. I like to go in with that and get the cloud shapes. It just seems to be the right size, and it just works really well. Another thing I use it for as well is for actually getting a white edge around the outlines of my drawings. You know, when I finish them. Say for example, this is a sketch pad. I know you've all got brilliant imaginations. Come on, you're all artists, so you can just imagine for a minute that's a sketch pad. Now, when I've finished my drawing, you know, I like to have a nice white border around the edge, and I find that if I lock my fingers onto the edge of the sketch pad and then lock the eraser onto those fingers, I can slide that up and down on the edge of the paper and get a really level line all around the edge of the drawing, and that gives me a nice sort of white border. It's brilliant for that. So yeah, that's a Derwent pen eraser, and you can also get refills as well for that. That's one I highly recommend. I did actually, since I just picked those up actually, I did actually forget to mention this one. This is the Pentel Click eraser. Again, I don't often use this one very much, but it's such a really top quality eraser, I couldn't resist buying it. It's a lightweight aluminium cover, and the eraser slides in and out, and you can just take it out just by moving it like that. And it just pops back in there again, slides back in, and like you've already seen, you can get refills for it. I do actually like a lot of Pentel stuff actually, so I think that's why I bought this one. I didn't really have a specific use for it when I bought it, but I thought because of its very thin size and with the pocket clip on there, it'd be a really useful item to take out sketching. Or just to clip to a sketchbook, you know, just because of the size of it. It's not bulky or anything, it's nice and light, so yeah, it's another nice one. But it doesn't actually feature in my top 5, which we'll come to in a minute. Right, so the next one up is the battery eraser. As you can see, this one's made by Derwent. You just press the button and the end rotates, and you can really get back to almost white paper with that. And it's great for doing certain effects like dabbing. When that's rotating, you can just keep dabbing like that and get all sorts of nice effects. And again, it's, you know, another very efficient eraser that you can get refills for really easily. It's a reasonable price as well for what I think is a good quality item. Sometimes there can be issues when you're actually changing the eraser, you're putting a fresh one in. Sometimes it can sort of oscillate a little bit, you know, if you get it, I'll kind of try and do it now and show you what I mean. That just pulls out and you push the eraser in. Sometimes when you're pushing that back in, you might not get it perfectly centered. I don't know if you can see that, but sometimes they kind of oscillate a little bit wonky, and you just have to kind of play around with them a little bit so you get them, you know, fairly straight. But I do recommend these. It's not an eraser that I use for every drawing, but for certain things, you know, it really does the job well. Now, what I'm about to show you here, I'm going to call a kneadable eraser, but it's actually Bluetac. It does the same job as a kneadable eraser, and the reason I use Bluetac these days is because I've had too many negative experiences with, let's say, sort of artist quality kneadable erasers. One of them being, I'm not going to mention any brand names here, but one of them being, one in particular, it smelt that bad of chemicals that I couldn't use it for a day. And the next day when I used it, when I was kind of squidging it around in my hand to, you know, get a shape, fine shape, I could still smell the chemicals coming off of it, and all day the chemicals were smelling on my fingers. Even though I'd washed my hands loads of times to try and get rid of that smell, I could smell it when I was eating, and it just stayed on my hands all day. It kind of permeated into my skin, and I just threw the eraser away. I thought, well, I don't even think that's safe. And other issues I've had with kneadable erasers are they dry out very quick. Some of them do, but Bluetac doesn't actually dry out, and it's non-toxic, it's very safe, and it works brilliantly. Now, I've been asked by a few people, I think mainly in America, there seems to be some confusion about this. I'll just show you the packet. Okay, so this is what it is. This is what it looks like. It's made by Bostik. I don't know if you can get this in America or not. One of the members on my Patreon channel hadn't heard of this before, and she's in America, and she had to actually buy some from the UK. So I don't know if you have a similar product in the US or not. I'm sure you will have, but I'll show you what it looks like anyway. Obviously it comes in a packet like that. It's called Bluetac, and it, you know, it comes in this waxy paper, and that's what it looks like. And you just kind of pull, you know, whatever size piece you want off, and you're good to go. You know, you can roll it round into any shape you want. Nice fine points, and it works really well. You know, I've got no issue or any problem with these. I've used it for years actually, in between using other kneadable erasers, but for some reason I've just gone back to using this, and I think I'm just going to stick with this as well, because it works as good as any of the, you know, big named brands out there, and this is kind of half the price, so, you know, why not? Repositionable, reusable, versatile, clean and safe. I mean, they use this in classrooms with kids, you know, so it's I know it's safe, it's not toxic or anything like that. Yeah, so there you go, Bluetac for a kneadable eraser. Right, so my top 5, which I recommend, are those. Yes, I'm going to leave that out because I find that I can do pretty much the same thing with the Derwent pen eraser. Obviously I can get a wider mark with that one, so it's probably worth having one of these as well anyway, but you know, generally I can get by with that. So the Derwent battery eraser, the Derwent pen eraser, the Kohinoor pencil eraser, and the Tombow Mono Zero eraser, and some good old Bluetac or a kneadable eraser, I think are fairly essential for graphite drawing. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed that, hope it was useful to you. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.